Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today we're going to be tracking the developing low pressure system that is going to dump an incredible amount of rainfall this afternoon and evening over the top of Sydney and Penrith, and also for southeastern Queensland as well. A bunch of rainfall is expected there over today and tomorrow. Then we're going to move up north and talk about some rainfall around the remainder of Queensland, and then two developing tropical lows, one of them developing across West Australian waters and another one in the Gulf of Carpentaria. So quite a lot happening weather-wise around the nation today. We're going to start things off, of course, down in Sydney and that area, because you can see on the convective satellite imagery right now there is an awful lot of cloud activity moving through New South Wales and Queensland, and it's only going to intensify throughout the day. And if we play a 12-hour loop through here, you can see just this big blow up of clouds that's been happening over the past 12 hours associated with the developing a very strong low pressure system that's developing over central New South Wales. Now, this low pressure area is not expected to get itself over water like we were initially expecting a couple of days ago, which means it won't be as strong as what we initially thought, but still the amount of moisture that is streaming in from the tropical waters adjacent to Queensland and New South Wales, it is really going to be driving those rainfall accumulations up quite significantly. And dare I say, we're going to be looking at rainfall accumulations possibly up towards 300 to 400 millimetres for Sydney's eastern suburbs. There's going to be some significant flooding from this weather event, and I believe it's the Warragamba Dam that is expected to be at least filled, and it will likely overflow as a result of this rainfall event. So I believe it's already at 97.3% capacity, and it is likely to have that extra 3% topped up from this 300 to 400 millimetres that can be expected. Very heavy rainfall from this low pressure area, and it's going to be peaking at around 6 p.m. tonight. And you can see already a lot of rainfall moving through New South Wales from this just sort of moderate to heavy shower activity, especially around the Sydney sort of area and streaming down in the coastline sort of area south of Coffs Harbour. There's a lot of rainfall already moving through, but you can see on the forecast models right now it is nothing in comparison to what we're going to be looking at tonight. These greens turn into reds and blacks by around midnight tonight, and then into early tomorrow morning, and hopefully they do start to ease off by around 8 or 9 a.m. Saturday morning local time before starting to move further south. But yeah, just very heavy rainfall can be expected until probably around 8 or 9 a.m. local time around Sydney and the eastern suburbs especially. And I mean, this rainfall here, this sort of rain bomb that's moving through, we're talking about accumulations approaching 40 to 50 millimetres an hour, sustaining themselves for maybe 6 hours at a time. So you're definitely talking rainfall accumulations in excess of 200 millimetres and possibly closer to 300 millimetres for Sydney's eastern and southern suburbs. Sydney itself will likely cop some very significant rainfall, but it will definitely be those eastern suburbs around Penrith and then down towards Wollongong as well that will cop it big time. Canberra as well can expect some pretty significant rainfall. And then the rainfall should hopefully contract further south towards the Victoria-New South Wales border, but still very, very heavy rainfall expected throughout the remainder of Saturday for some areas too. Over the next 24 hours, I'm not expecting anything ridiculous in terms of rainfall across Sydney. This is until midnight tonight local time. We're probably going to be looking at around 100 millimetres on top of what we're seeing right now, but it's going to be beyond that where we're really going to see these rainfall accumulations skyrocket. Penrith itself expecting 150 millimetres, Sydney maybe around 100 millimetres, but then down towards Wollongong and inland around Appin, you're probably going to be looking at closer to 250 millimetres of rainfall, and that's not even the upper echelon of what is expected. The Access G3 model, which is generally the more bullish of the models, but at this point it looks like something that is going to be quite accurate. You'd be seeing rainfall accumulations inland around the dam sort of area at around 250 millimetres. So very, very heavy rainfall anticipated, and keep in mind that this will fall over the course of 6 to 8 hours. This is not going to be falling over the next 3 days or even 5 days. This will fall over the next 6 to 12 hours up across, well, not the next 6 to 12 hours, but it will fall in the 6 hours between probably about 9 or 10 p.m. tonight right through to about 2 or 3 a.m. tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. So yeah, we're going to be waking up to a pretty significant flooding situation, I believe, across Sydney, especially Sydney's east. Tomorrow, Sydney's west tomorrow. It is going to be quite a significant situation, that's for sure. You can also see quite a lot of rainfall expected to be around the northern parts of New South Wales as well. It should hopefully be offshore, this rainfall, but still some heavy falls can be expected to occur along the coastline associated with this front that's going to be pulling in all of the moisture from the north adjacent to this low pressure area, and that rainfall is already well underway. There's nothing ridiculously heavy right now in terms of rainfall. There's a few heavy showers moving through the Sydney sort of area at this time that are dropping about 20 millimetres an hour, but again, it's nothing crazy at this time. It's really going to pick up tonight, and this radar imagery is going to turn from greens and yellows into oranges and reds, where we're going to be seeing that really heavy rainfall start to pick up across Sydney. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting forecast, that's for sure. Wind as well is going to be a significant threat from this low pressure area. The winds are going to get really gusty tonight, probably up towards 100 or 110 kilometres an hour, especially along the coastline, and wave heights too are going to be very high tonight and into tomorrow morning, possibly up towards 5 metres as this sort of low pressure area moves down the coastline, hopefully easing off for Sydney and her beaches by around Saturday evening, but hazardous surf conditions will persist definitely in towards Sunday morning. So advised not to swim, or at least swim and take great care throughout Friday and Saturday, but again, it's just not going to be beach weather, and in a situation like this, it is not worth risking it. It is not beautiful weather at this time of the year, so just don't risk surfing or swimming. Big waves, they could be the last wave that you ever surf, so you don't want to become a statistic. Just make sure you are staying as safe as possible around the water. If there's floodwaters in your area as well, make sure you're moving away from them, and if it's too dangerous to, or your life is in immediate risk, then just stop and call emergency services. And if it is flooded, just forget about it, because floodwaters, they are incredibly powerful. 6 inches of water is enough to knock you off your feet. That's 15 centimetres of floodwater is enough to knock you off your feet, and that's water up towards your shins. So yeah, but just make sure you are exercising as much caution as possible in floodwaters. Now, I believe it's time to take a look at those developing tropical low threats. Well, already it's developing quite nicely across West Australian waters. The circulation is not as tight as I would have liked it to be at about this time. I mean, you can see there's a lot of thunderstorm activity. It's just kind of a bubble bath of sort of thunderstorms at this time. So it's not looking overly amazing, but it still is a tropical low kind of in its own regard at this time. We're going to watch it develop throughout the course of today. I think it might get upgraded to a tropical low tomorrow, and we'll start to see a lot more information released from the Bureau of Meteorology, because they haven't been talking about this system at all, basically, and I haven't heard too much on the New South Wales situation either. So again, we'll just have to keep an eye on things from the Bureau of Meteorology. They haven't released an awful lot of information, but hopefully that does come throughout the course of today and tomorrow. Nothing happening in this system until probably around Saturday evening, when it likely becomes a tropical low at this point. And if it's going to become a tropical cyclone, it'll probably do so, I would say, Sunday or maybe Monday morning, and then by Monday afternoon it'll certainly be on its last legs and dying off by Tuesday. The Axis G3 model also has this becoming a tropical cyclone. They've got it coming a tropical cyclone, though, coming just a few days later, probably by around Sunday afternoon or evening, south of Bali, where there's some pretty significant rainfall occurring right now. And the Axis also has this becoming probably a Category 2 tropical cyclone as well, with some stronger wind speeds than what the Eastern Weather Forecast model has, before once again getting sort of towards the longitude line of Karratha and really petering out by Wednesday. So it lasts for a full 48 hours longer than what the Eastern VF model has to say. But again, once it sort of gets to around here, and it's fully outside of the tropical zone further north, it's going to have a much harder time, and it's going to be stripped of its thunderstorm activity. It'll have a very bare core, which means it'll be struggling to survive and blow up enough wind speeds to really be classifiable as a tropical cyclone, and it should also be struggling with dry air as it gets to this point. Oh my goodness, that is a horrible picture for this tropical cyclone. Yeah, it will have dry air galore. It will be completely stripped of its convection. Yeah, this cyclone will not be healthy at all by around Thursday or Friday. I mean, mid-level humidity values of around 30%. That is abysmal for this tropical cyclone. Typically, you want them at around 80%. So when you're talking about half of the mid-level humidity values, this storm stands not a chance in the West Australian environment once this gets past Karratha, starting to head further towards the west of Karratha. Now, there's also a system expected to develop in the Gulf of Carpentaria in around 8 days' time now. That, again, the forecast models just really don't know what to say for this system. The Axis G3 model seems to be still on board with it developing into a tropical low, which is what they've been saying for the last couple of days. But again, I don't think this is classifiable as a tropical cyclone. I think the Axis is just saying that just to have something on the forecast model run. And again, same thing with the Eastern BF. It's not calling for a tropical cyclone. It's just calling for a weak tropical low. It could drive rainfall accumulations up across far northern Queensland in the extreme northern parts of the Cape York Peninsula, but it looks like it's just going to be too far away to be any impact to Queensland. So this is a system that I'm going to declare, even though it's forming very close to Australia, not a rain threat at all. And again, you can see over 10 days, the rainfall accumulation is really not high across the across the Australian tropics rather. Maybe one or two spots around Cape Wessel and Nullarbor in the Northern Territory that have some significant rainfall up towards 200 millimetres, and also on the Cape York Peninsula up towards Lockhart River, 200 millimetres or so. But it really does look like the tropics are moving a lot further north at this point. And yeah, anywhere north of Cooktown can be places expecting rainfall, and then south of Cooktown expect little or no rainfall, that's for sure. But it is now a very dry picture. You know, when the rainfall extends away from the coastline on the Gulf of Carpentaria, that the wet season is well and truly winding down at this point. And it certainly looks like that. And all you guys up in far northern Queensland and the Northern Territory, you guys will also be able to feel the fact that the wet season is certainly starting to die down now. Maybe one last push for the northern parts of the Cape York Peninsula. Thursday Island will probably have another month of relatively wet weather ahead of them, but again, the wet season is certainly starting to wind down at this point as we get further into April. And again, nationwide, just nothing interesting happening. Perth remaining high and dry. One or two strong cold fronts could occur next week, but again, the forecast models have backed them down a little bit, and you can see that's reciprocated amongst snowfall accumulation. Tasmania now out of the picture for snowfall, but one or two spots across New South Wales could be expecting just a little bit of snowfall over the next 10 days. The Axis not really on board with it, nor is the GFS. It's kind of just the Eastern BF forecast model right now. So we'll just have to wait and see in terms of snowfall what actually happens across southern Australia, because snow, it is exciting to forecast, but yeah, it can be very difficult to forecast, and it's very heavily dependent on what fronts are in the area at the time. Anyways, a little bit of a quicker update today, probably because I've been speaking so fast. I hope everyone has a great Friday, a great day at work or at home. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you haven't already, then please do consider subscribing and leave a like if you haven't already as well. Comment down below a weather report for your location or any feedback that you might have, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.